Good morning, everyone. My name is Kojo Benton Williams, the managing editor at Voyage Afrique Travel Media, and also the senior expert for communication at the World Tourism Organization. This week is the World Tourism Day week, or Tourism Day week, and specifically on the 27th, Sunday, 27th of September, is the World Tourism Day, and the theme for this year is tourism and rural development. So, as part of a series Project ENGZA has put together is to discuss the role, the roles of tourism in the rural communities. And so we are having this World Tourism Day dialogue, series, which is a hybrid event, and the facilitator, Jessica, will be coming to us live from a village in Devon. So, without much ado, I would like to introduce my panel. And I have Ross Carter from Perfections Online. I have Zodwa Masingma. I forgot it right, from Ikongo Communications, and then Makosi Simango, then Candice Meyer, and then our facilitator, Jessica, who will be joining us. So let me start with you, Makosi. If you can introduce yourself and tell us brief about what you do.
Thank you, Kojo, for that. Welcome to everyone. And my name is Makosi Simango. I am the founder and the managing director of Inzenga Tours, and also the provincial chairperson for the KZN Women in Tourism.
Okay. Now, let me stay with you for a while. What is your role, or how do you see tourism? This year's theme, tourism and rural development, and how you believe it can be very, a good synergy for the community.
Okay, with the KZN Women in Tourism Association, we saw it fit well for us to focus and channel our energies and our mandates to uplift the rural women the rural and township women, those that have got tourism products. So our role is to empower them through the programs that we have, and through the upliftment of market access, master classes, and also through personal development, because if you are the owner of the product, you have to look the part and speak the part. So our master classes are developing them on a scale for them to be able to speak on an international level as well, taking their products and uplifting those products to be able to market them and work on an international platform, because most of them are homestay owners and some of them are also crafters. So with the homestay owners, we look at the safety and we look at how they are able to market on an international scale.
Okay, I'll come to you again with the challenges and with the sensitivity of sometimes having to pick up things from the rural community. But I'll introduce Jessica to give us the introductory remark of the whole project. Let me come to you, Ross. Ross, we're living in an age right now that, if you may want to call it, is priceless in terms of IT and what it can do for the rural folks in terms of upscaling. Introduce yourself to us and give us an introductory remark of tourism and rural development from your perspective.
Cool. Thank you, Kojo, and hello to everybody. Yes, I was very fortunate to bring ExpediaHotels.com to Africa in 2003 and had been in the business for 15 years. I left 2 years ago, spent a short stint at Legacy Hotels, and most recently at Knightsbridge. Then I started this business, Perfections Online, beginning of February, and which was the best time, I think, to start a tourism business in any country in the world. So we've certainly had, in terms of revenue, may have not been the best time to start, but in terms of having the ability to contact. So yeah, so it's just really, it's been a real eye-opener. In order to get a lot of people, if we were doing tourism business, generally it's done in person. If you think about all the exhibitions that we've attended over, I can't remember, I think I've been to over 20 world travel markets in London. That's how you do business. Now, all of a sudden, we've all been pushed to work like this. And we've done over 90 different pitches over the past 6 months. Now, I've gone across Africa. We've been up to Morocco. We've been to Spain. We've been in Durban and a variety of African countries. Now, if I had to cost that would cost me thousands and thousands of dollars in order to travel there. But this COVID has certainly pushed people that normally wouldn't have communicated this way onto this platform. So it's kind of helped us where we were. I can remember when I moved to South Africa, back to South Africa after being in London with hotels.com. I was kicked out of Indaba literally because of this digitization of the travel sphere at that stage. Now we've certainly been able to move it far further because of this, and we've reset a lot of things. We've had the opportunity to speak to lots of hotels and operators, and they now are resetting the way they did business. That's the most amazing thing. So they had a lot of bad habits prior to COVID, and now they're looking at really structuring things, and you have to now be a lot more accountable to what you may have been before. And also being accountable, you can put in systems. So using things like, Google, Facebook, really trackable and measurable platforms than what was in the past. But I'll leave it there and let other people jump on for now. So I can.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Ross. And I'll come to the the point of the fear of the unknown. Even though we know that IT is now there, but if you're talking about tourism and rural development and rural community, sometimes there's always the fear of the unknown of getting some of your privacy out there. Now, Zodwa, as a PCO, okay. How, of course, you can give us an overview of what's happening right now, and then you tell us how do you bring on board the rural tourism offering as part of your pitch to your clients?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Zodwa Msimang, live from Durban, KwaZulu-Natal. We are a professional conference organizer, as you've said. Thank you for having us, Jess and Kojo. Of course, when it comes to rural tourism, it is something that we would include intentionally so for our offerings, because certainly as a business, as Econo Thrive Global, we are very much in touch with empowering, especially women and youth in the rural areas. We even have a foundation that focuses on making sure that they are empowered with skills that are relevant for our industry. Rural tourism also is something that I think is even more exciting that you can offer for your clients for pre or post tours, So it is something that we definitely do. But I mean, obviously also when it comes to sourcing of supplies, your bags, your lanyards, like, this beaded Zulu thing that I'm wearing currently. So those kind of things, we definitely would source from ladies, and especially the youth that is based in the rural areas. Okay.
Now, let me just stay with you further. But the point where people make, or some of tourism watchers make, is the fact that sometimes it's just saying that, okay, you have an event here and you need these people to be part of it at the last minute. How do you integrate them fully? So if you are having a program in Durban, and then maybe there ought to be some traditional, performance or something, do you then begin the process of engaging them early as part of the whole project, or then you have to wait to, some week to go, and then you determine what you want? Obviously, as a PCO, you have certain parameters you are working with, but I'm saying that how inclusive do you bring them on board?
You know, in fact, with regards to I say the expectation from our governments as well, national, provincial, and at local government level with the municipalities, because mostly they will be involved as partners when it comes to conferences that are either in Durban, Joburg, or Cape Town. So it is mandatory that you make sure that you include people from the rural areas. So from the beginning, like I was saying, that from our side, for instance, because it's something that really comes naturally from the onset, when we do a proposal, we already have that as part of our offering, because it is something that we do on a daily basis as a business now, as Econo, because we have a foundation that specifically focuses on making sure that we empower women and youth from the rural areas. So for instance, like when you are in Durban, Kwanyuswa, which is one like a group that we work with mostly, it's like 30 minutes away, so it's not that far. But sometimes you will have a conference in Richards Bay and there are communities around that area. So if you are in the Drakensberg area, there are communities around that area. So it really is something that for some of us comes naturally.
Okay. Makosi, sorry. Let me come to you that if from what you're doing with women in tourism, what are the challenges when you want to build their capacity for them to understand the role that they play? Because we also have to be very true with ourselves that when you have to deliver a service or a product, people in the rural communities also have the responsibility of ensuring that they project or they put their best foot forward. How do you educate them on that?
Okay. First, we focus on changing the mindset, because sometimes, in most cases actually, we come across a number of women through the then government or the current government, they were systematically excluded. So they don't see themselves as product owners. They don't see themselves as business people. So we home on changing their mindset first through educating themselves, through educating their families, because the support structure is very important, and also through educating the community. Because in the past, women have been seen as entertainment token in terms of when they come to sell their craft. So they don't necessarily know the value and calculating the hours spent on making that craft, and basically giving them soft business skills. So changing their mindsets. It starts off as a challenge, but throughout the program, it turns and they are able to see it as an opportunity. So yes, it's a challenge, but we take it as an opportunity, because eventually they are able to see themselves as business people, and the support structure is able to respect them, and the community is able to respect them as business owners, because now that everybody is aware that, oh, Umam Sbanbani, when selling her craft, she now has an office, or she now has invoicing system. She now no longer negotiates her prices. She now knows the value. She now knows how to market her business. When she goes, because we give them opportunity to attend the likes of Indaba. So they're now able to market it on an international scale. So we take those challenges and we turn them into opportunity.
Now, what about, how do you manage issues of sometimes people expressing, lack of privacy for some of these offering? I mean, if you want to consume that tourism product or services at the rural community, how do you let them understand that they are part of a certain delivery, tourism ecosystem?
Okay. Kojo, as I mentioned before, we have two masterclasses that we run free of charge for our members, particularly in the rural and township areas. The first one is personal development, and the second one is the product development. I've honed in a lot about the personal development, but now when you talk about, to answer your question, when you talk about consuming the product, we develop the product and we market it in the sense that if we take a homestay owner, we want the experience to be authentic, yes, we agree, but at the same time, we don't want it to be traumatizing to the client. We want them to come back. So we looked at the issues of safety. We look at the issues of health. We look at the issues and a number of issues of bedding. And that is why the KZN Women in Tourism is in partnership with the Tourism Grading Council to get the homestays their own grading category, because they no longer fall under hotels, they no longer fall under B&Bs. They've got their own different criteria.
Okay, thank you. Ross, now, if we come back to our topic, tourism and rural development, I think that it is a perfect theme for this year. How are we able to, upscale or bring some of the services, of these rural folks into the tourism space? What is your experience dealing with, working in Africa, and how those selling their crafts or doing other projects can be able to uplift their own project with IT?
Having worked extensively across Africa and done a lot of rural conferencing over many, many years, I think it comes down to exactly what Makosi is doing. It's around that product development on the one side is very important, because it's not just, product development isn't just about having a bed. It's about the entire experience. So it starts from the very beginning. So how do we market the product? So let's start there. So how do we get that product to market? So, just off the top of my head, you've got to look at, a Google business listing. You've got to look at a Facebook listing, an Instagram listing. These are things that are all free, You then got to look at things that are, registering on an OTA, on an online travel agency, working with some tour operators, not all of them, because it becomes very difficult. Then you've got to then think about, how do you manage this? So you've got to then have a property management system. So in South Africa, we're very fortunate with having a company like Knightsbridge that's relatively inexpensive, and that really caters to this distribution kind of in multiple different distribution avenues, as in tour operators, OTAs, tourism boards, etc. So they have the ability to connect. So that's on the one side. Then you've got to think about the accounting side, because we want to make sure that people are then paying taxes. I think that's really important, is that they then pay taxes and contribute back if they are successful. So that's from a structural and a marketing perspective, is to make sure that we have that. Then once the customer arrives, is then to make sure that the product is looked after. It's making sure that what is on the website is representative in the property. So having high quality pictures, and in today's world, it's possible. People have high quality phones that they can take good pictures with. There's a lot of literature out there that helps people on how to curate a picture, how to structure a picture, what needs to be in the picture. There's a lot of people that are taking, just things that we see. People take a picture of a toilet, the toilet seat is up. People taking a picture of a room, and there's a reflection of them in the mirror or in the glass. These are just things that take your product from being serious to not being that serious. It kind of portrays that you still want to be a professional business and go through there. So I think, in terms of that rural development, I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done by big business in connecting themselves with the rural side. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done and there are programs out there, but I think it's they're just not active enough, I think, at certain levels in getting big business into those areas and making sure that they are executing what they are promising. So getting those products online, getting those products distributed correctly. We have a couple of programs that we're busy working on at the moment to do all of this that I'm speaking of. But it takes time and it takes money. So somebody has to invest into it. Somebody has to invest the fact that there's a homestay with 10 rooms that will only maybe become profitable in 3 to 5 years. Now, who's going to invest in that? Those are the challenges in terms of rural kind of globalization, if you want to, because you still then want it to be authentic. So you don't want to go in there and you put a Samsung TV with Netflix on the TV. You want that authenticity, I think, in the product. So I think I don't know how long it's going to take, but I can tell you that it has been identified at provincial level that there is a need. I can tell you that now at the KZN provincial side, there is a need. They've identified it, and now it's time for us to start executing it a little bit better. And I think this period now allows us to reset and go, right, what's happened in the past is in the past. From now on, this is the way we work. We make sure it's measurable. We make sure that people are accountable, and then we make sure that we do the job right. And I think that's the difference now. In the past, it was kind of, let's just throw some money at it and hope it's going to work. We can't do that anymore. We don't have those slush funds anymore. We've got to make sure that it's measurable and accountable now in terms of these rural development programs.
Sure. I mean, thank you, Ross. But again, the difficult question that we're all trying to answer is the fact that as we speak now, and again, it's very classical that Jessica is trying to connect with us from the rural community. How then do we, because we all have stayed home through the lockdowns, but if you take a look in some of rural communities in Africa, you realize that some do not even have the luxury, and we'll put it quote unquote, luxury of connecting or having the basic thing of having data or something. How can we address those challenges in terms of the infrastructure and then, helping to uplift these businesses in the rural community?
Yeah, I think it's been tried so many times and it's just been unsuccessful. I mean, it would be great to know if Makosi has any best practices. Rolling these programs out, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time, but are there best practices? Because you then need to work with a diverse range of companies, because then you're talking about telecoms, you're talking about electricity. I mean, in South Africa, it's widely known that we have challenges with electricity, and then and also money disappears. That's the other problem. And I think that's an African problem in general. So there's lots of people pumping in money and wanting things to work, but it's just not happening. And unfortunately, it needs to be multifaceted. But the more diverse you make it, the more difficult it becomes. That's the problem. The more people you have, then the more people want to put their fingers in, and then you actually get nothing done. It's about just having one organization that runs with it and gets the things done and makes it accountable and has these best practices over 1 or 2, 3 years, because then you can copy paste. There are quite a number of these out there. I mean, I know that a lot of the provincial governments do sponsor a lot of tourism entities or startup businesses, but I don't think those stories are told enough. They're not very good at telling their own story. I think that sometimes also becomes a problem, is that we don't gloat enough on what we've done well. We only seem to look at what's gone wrong. I think that's just in our human nature. We always want to point out what's wrong, but there's some amazing successful things that have happened. In Durban on its own, I think Ushaka, in my view, is a very successful a development, although it's in the city. There's a number of other initiatives that are currently being rolled out in KZN, if we just use them as an example. So, but they don't talk about their successes. We only penalize them when they do things wrong. So it's sometimes a little bit unfair.
I agree. But again, we have a lot of problems. So sometimes, we know that we need to go from one, to other. But it is important to celebrate the little that you've achieved. And I'll come to the point I'm jumping on to Candice Meyer from Hilton, and she's going to share with us what Hilton have been doing themselves, because my question to Candice will be that Hilton is a brand that we know, obviously, is more urban driven. And how then do you integrate, rural aspect into your game in terms of the offering and in terms of, because I know you also engage in a lot of projects, and how do you position the rural tourism enterprise as part of your project?
Right. Thank you very much, Koja. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you. It's okay.
Great. Okay, so I mean, definitely as a brand, our target market is definitely business. But in terms of our sort of company mission is that we focus on four main aspects. The one being the guest, the second being team members, the third being owners, and the fourth is then the community. And we look at a number of different ways in which we are able to then communicate with community. We do a number of different community projects. In the past, we've run something called Soap for Hope, which is linked to diversity as well. And it looks at taking old hotel soap, putting it through a sanitization process, recycling it, and then distributing it through to poorer communities. And in this way, we've spent a lot of time helping communities uplift themselves. But again, is that enough for us to do? Because how do we develop the community to make them sustainable in terms of earning an income? So one of my key focuses, certainly in my role as learning and development, is that I focus a lot on youth upliftment. And we work on a number of different projects on how to give youth opportunities from disadvantaged backgrounds who maybe wouldn't get an opportunity in a 5-star hotel through the normal line of opportunity. In the past, hotels have spent a lot of time working with renowned hotel schools. They spend a lot of time working with big brands, big universities. But we've seen an upliftment of the technical and vocational colleges across Africa and across South Africa in particular. I think at my last count, we had possibly 300 TVET colleges between public and private, and all of them are offering a qualification in tourism and hospitality, because we know that it is a key income driver. So by spending a little bit of time with these colleges, we've helped these learners understand a little bit about what hospitality is, also looking at the difference between tourism and hospitality. And I think one of our key initiatives that we've launched this year, and it would have started a little bit earlier, but with COVID-19, we had to put a pause on it, is we've adopted a college who we've had learners from, and we found that they weren't fully capable of dealing with the 5-star hotel environment. A guest comes into a 5-star environment, they are looking for interaction, they're looking for people who are confident, they're looking for people who have a wealth of product knowledge. And the TVET college learner is not necessarily fully prepared for this. They have the theory, but they don't understand how to apply that theory into practice. So we've recently launched a program with Youth Build International, and they have received funding from Hilton Foundation. And partnering with this TVET college, we are now looking at building a class that gets additional grooming, additional finishing. They're getting additional exposure to the industry in preparation for us to create a pool of learners who we can give experience to. Now, the class itself is 40 learners, and we can't necessarily place 40 learners. So once the class is ready to go into industry, we will be approaching other hotels and saying, we have a class who has now been through this program. They've been given additional assistance from Hilton. We've had our head of departments going in and giving lectures to them in terms of housekeeping, food and beverage, the culinary side, in terms of additional roles that you can have in a hotel. So from security through to housekeeping, through to HR, finance, and then saying to industry leaders and industry, so hotel environments, tourism environments, we have a learner who has been through this Youth Build program they've been given a little bit extra over and above the normal curriculum that has looked at their soft skills and the application of their skills into a practical environment. And because we've worked so closely with the school in terms of developing this, our hope is that we have a learner who is confident and can walk into a hotel environment and pick up exactly where they need to pick up, because a lot of these learners have never seen the inside of a hotel. Yet from an employer point of view, we have a very high expectation of them. So we found that we needed to bridge this gap, because there are a lot of interested youth, there is a lot of development, there's a lot of focus around developing the rural community, and a lot of these learners want to develop within their own communities, but they just do not have that additional knowledge about how do I start a business, how do I manage my business financially, how do I give back to the community in terms of sustainability. So the program that we've launched with Youth Build will be tapping into all of those different aspects and helping to groom the learner to, number one, be able to work in an environment like a 5-star hotel, and 2, run their own business. So we've included entrepreneurship, we've included aspects around sustainability and protecting your environment. We've even looked at how to take minimal resources, such as using eco bricks and taking, litter, which is the new gold, and utilizing that to create a business model. So I'm hoping that came across quite clearly, but really our focus is not so much in terms of giving back to community in terms of money, but giving back to the community in terms of skills upliftment.
I'll just chip in there just with regards to the, I did some of my youth training at Hilton, and when they opened the Hilton in Sandton many years ago. And I can tell you that I went through their training, and it's probably evolved since then. I hope it does. I'm sure it has. But I think it's about setting that level of standard, that if you're wanting to bring in international customers or customers of a certain caliber that have lots of money, you have to serve them in a particular way. You've got to have a really high standard in terms of just the basics, just manners, being attentive to seeing people when they're in distress, or seeing people when they want that extra drink, or they want help with their knives and forks. It's just about having that attentiveness. That's what these types of programs give you, because you can read as many books as you want, but having that feeling on when somebody needs help, I think is critical. Because I've traveled across Africa a lot. I've got some great stories of different types of service that I've had. But we'll leave that for when we can meet in person. But I just think that it's companies like Hilton getting involved in rural communities is so important, because it just lifts. It makes people want to go back. If you want the culture of the community, but you also want the culture of good and happy service, and that has to be taught sometimes. That really has to be taught. The culture of how you brought up is one thing, but the culture to serve at a high standard has to be taught, unfortunately.
Okay, no, that's fine. No, that's true, because remember, it's a big business, and we don't have a South African standard, a Ghanaian standard. We have a world-class standard. So if you have a setting, customers, you also have to ensure that you are keeping that specific service tag. Makosi, my question to you is how do we help entities like Hilton and other big corporations to understand me, because they have a youth development program, but how do they, because sometimes what also I've seen from Africa, is the fact that we are quick to obviously every time adapt to what is supposed to be the standard. And we don't also integrate understanding from the roots to know how we can have, integrating part of what they think is not something they can hold on as a holistic project to develop because people may have talent, but to shape them and to let them understand where they're coming from, not necessarily the area, but that thought is also very crucial. What role do your organization play in ensuring that people are not just, asked to adapt something that is not their thing, but to have that good mix?
Yeah, Kojo, like I mentioned before, education. We have to educate ourselves, not only from the bottom, but from the bottom up. The likes of Hilton are a big company, right? So, and Candace, I commend them for the great job that they're doing with youth upscaling and the programs that they have. Now, it's now taking and working with the likes of the KZN Women in Tourism, with the people that are on the ground, that understand the community, that are the community. For myself, I've got a background in the rural. I come from a rural upbringing. So my passion is driven by the love of people, by the love of my community. So it's a matter of working hand in hand with the people on the ground who know very well the groundworks, the ins and outs, and being able to understand, not only understanding one side, but also understanding their side as well, on how they can upscale their products and how they can offer. I'm not sure whether it was Hilton years back, they had a program, a wonderful program, Candace will correct me if I'm wrong, where it's called BNB, I forgot the exact term, but in short, you babysit a BNB establishment. And whether it comes from a rural or urban background, it didn't matter, but a big company will babysit that BNB and make sure that they have all the necessities ticked. Because it's all good in having the Tourism Grading Council come and check you, but they don't know what is the runnings after they've left your premises. So babysitting, you are able to know the ins and outs of that. That was a wonderful program where the exchange is very crucial. Working together, working hand in hand, exchanging the skills, exchanging understanding, educating each other. Because I know homestays and hotels have got different criteria and different backgrounds, but they've got a similarity to what Ross was saying of service. So if I've got trainees that are based in a homestay environment, I would want to upscale them and make sure that they have skills of Hilton hotels, the likes of the Hilton hotels. So I'm not sure if Kojo, I'm answering your question correctly.
No, I mean, we are all on the same page, but let me go to Sodwa. Sodwa, again, as a PCO, now, if you want to have the event, I mean, this is a classical case of we're trying to connect with Jessica, and then we have the issue like this. Is it possible, or how do you scale that challenge of having to, for example, have an event, a hybrid, because now you're going to move into the hybrid, arena post the pandemic? How do you address that? That you want to have an event, you want to host it in some village in Accra or in South Africa or something. How then do you put in mechanism to ensure that, in spite of, like Ross and Makosi said, in spite of trying to bring or have inclusion, how do you balance that one with also excellence? Because remember that as a PCO, once you get the contract, there are some things that you need to meet as that.
Currently, as I was saying to you, Kojo, earlier, we are in fact on site, fortunately in an urban area at the Durban ICC, where we're hosting a hybrid event under it's called the Durban Business Face, an annual event that happens here in Durban, and it's going very well. But, you know, if it was in a rural area, as it were, where there is you know, it seems like there is a challenge as we are experiencing now with Jessica, because you would have had enough time to plan ahead. I think that then collaboration would be key, you know. So where you probably would have, I think, a person like Ross with his offering, you know, that planning ahead and making sure that you have everything, all the resources that you need. If you have to bring in a relevant government department, like for instance, I'd say communications, where telecommunications comes under, you probably would have that, and any other, you know, stakeholder that would be relevant in assisting you to be able to make sure that you have an adequate what is it called? You know, we're still trying to learn these terms for IT and stuff like that. But just to make sure that you have enough, is it bandwidth, Ross? I'm not too sure.
Yes,
but
yeah.
you not have a challenge as it were. So you also work with the local municipality, you know, just to make sure that everybody is on board so that you do not have this kind of a challenge. I think collaboration is key. I think collaboration is key, quite honestly, going forward when it comes to hybrid. Like currently, as I'm saying that we are on site, we're working well with the ICC. We've had to plan and make sure that everything is in sync with the municipality because they own the event, and everything has been seamless. It's just been beautiful. It's different, but it's just been beautiful to be one of the PCOs that are hosting one of like a big hybrid event, since we are now in level 1 in South Africa. So we are able to have a certain number on site, but then a whole lot more people are actually streaming virtually. It's just amazing.
Okay, Ross, let me come back to you again. Now, I mean, the infrastructure, yes, is sometimes you can find in some other countries, even in rural communities in Africa. Now, the never-ending question also has to do with the bandwidth, the charges. Okay, I know that it's a private companies, and you know they have their operating costs and how they want to charge. But as an IT expert, what is the way forward if we really want to democratize, you know, tourism, have inclusion? Because then, if we can have a way that people can be able to access it, that's the only way that we can bring people along and use tourism as the social. That social instrument to change lives.
It's a very big question, and I think if we just look at the South African story, if we just put it into context, you know, 25 years ago, when our democracy, you know, kind of started, and you look at how many people are now involved in tourism, comparably to then, not only just the types of people, but also the regions that it's been able to get to. You know, I think we've seen progress, but I guess what we're coming down to is we want more progress. You know, and we want it faster. And I think there's exactly what Zodwa was talking about was collaboration. And what COVID has taught us is to lose our attitudes and to lose our personalities and put what's important first. And then we worry about whether it's good for our business or not. You know, I think that's maybe the best way to progress tourism in Africa is for big business to collaborate with the rural, but not just to say, oh, well, we're going to do it for 1 year. These need to be 10-year programs, you know, 5-year programs. You can't just do it in 1 year stints, or, you know, you go do, and Makosi has just touched on one of the most fundamental things, I think, in terms of business is around not just the product management, but the people management. So around where they're teaching people how to manage themselves. I forget what she called it exactly. No, personal development. Sorry, the personal development side. So personal development comes with attitude. You know, if you create a bunch of people in a particular community, they've got attitude. They're going to make sure that they get the communication in. They're going to make sure that they get the roads built. They're going to make sure that they get everything that they need in order to support tourism in that particular region. Because personal development is more than just developing yourself. It's about developing an attitude and developing people around you. And I think that's probably what this whole COVID thing has certainly resonated with a lot of people, is that you can't just develop yourself. You know, you've got to develop, if you're a leader, you've got to develop more leaders. That is your goal, because when you leave, then there's got to be people that follow up. And I think that's what's happening now, is that you have one person that leads the fight to get communication in, but nobody else is helping them. So, you know, and it's also over 1 year, then that person leaves, then nobody carries on that fight. And I think that's where the goals need to be. They need to be longer goals, and they need to be measurable and accountable. That's the most important thing here, is that there's lots of money thrown at tourism programs, but what's the accountability of it? Who's measuring what money's been put in and what the return of investment is, what the real return of investment is? And I think that's how we're going to spread the social impact of tourism in Africa. I've seen it work. You know, many years ago, there wasn't even a thing called, you know, when I started with Expedia in 2003, the iPhone wasn't developed. Can you believe it? Can you believe there was no social media? You know, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram. You know, all these kinds of things, and you know, the OTAs have developed in order to accommodate these things. And as industry, we need to evolve with what's being put in front of us. You know, the Airbnb phenomenon, that certainly helped rural tourism, but how do we get it to the next? What's next? You know, I guess. And you'd be surprised. I mean, of course, you must see it all the time. The people that are in these rural areas, they know how to operate. You want to see the hustle, you go into these rural areas. If you have a bad internet connection, people run to the top of the hill and get a good connection.
Yeah.
I've seen it because I've done it myself. I've run up with my laptop to try and get the signal. So, you know, these people can hustle. But we've got to make the hustle easier so that they can spend more time with customers. They can spend more time making sure that their product is displayed better on the internet. That's what we're trying to achieve. We're not just trying to achieve better connection so that they can sit in their hotel and work from there. We're trying it so that they can, you know, upload better quality pictures. They can upload better content. They can tell their story better. They can put in rates consistently. They can, you know, do what's next. The problem is that a lot of people are just stuck with no communication or no water or no electricity. That doesn't help us. We need to be going to the next level. You know, we need to be helping people to build better content. You know, help them to build video, help them to tell their story better. That's where what we should be talking about. We're talking about the basics. The basics should have been done a long time ago. You know, that's how we get tourism faster to grow, is by getting a lot of these basics in place faster.
No, I think you are right, and just to cap it off, it's just to say that, you know, we have to help them to be smart in terms of business, because then a lot of them are doing, you know, they are trying under the circumstance, but what experts like yourself bring on board is the fact that you help them to be smart in their business, you know, philosophy and their plans. Candice, you know, Hilton is a big brand, you know, group of hotels. Now you have also opportunity sometimes that. How do you then offer the traveler or your guest opportunity to go to these areas, spend? Because sometimes some of them, after their conferences and at a big event, I've seen classical cases where people are struggling to get places to go. Now, from where you sit, do you know, offer them that window of opportunity to visit, say, you know, some communities that you are aware of that, you know, meets your standard?
So it's always very difficult with a big environment like ours, and I can talk, about the Hilton Durban environment, and then I'll share some best practices from some of our other properties around Africa. But, in a property like Hilton Durban or Hilton Sandton, the traveler is coming in with a very strict time frame. So they're coming in, they're doing their meetings, and then they're wanting to leave. So the opportunity to experience the environment or what the rural community has to offer can be very difficult to take them out of the hotel and let them experience. So we always try and incorporate elements of what we do and rural, or in fact just our community influence. I prefer to refer to the term as community rather than rural.
Okay.
Because you can have an area like Hilton Sandton, and just one road over you've got Alexander, which is a huge township, which could be viewed as being rural, or it could be viewed as being urban, depending on which side of Alex you're going into. So we try and show our guests what our community is about through influences. So we allow our team members to dress up. So every Friday we have cultural dress. They're allowed to come to work in their cultural dress, so they can talk a little bit about their background, their heritage, and in that way engage in dialogue with guests as well, which often guests get guests interested in, how can I learn more about this? How can I access tours around this? And in that way, that's where the concierge desk becomes so important, because they need to understand what's happening in the local environment and be able to recommend tours, or be able to recommend opportunities to go and experience these places. In Durban, we've got Max's Lifestyle. We've had a number of guests go and experience Max's just because they've heard about it. Our team members got to go and experience it about 2 or 3 years ago. So we do try and incorporate that. Definitely working with Project Enza, we've been able to incorporate a few more things. We had a young girl with us, Zuriel Odawole, a few years ago, and Jessica helped me put together a program where she could go and experience a lot of the rural environment, to do a video around what the rural environment was actually like. And she took that video around the world and went and shared it with heads of state. She, as a 16-year-old girl, she has sat with more presidents than we're probably all of us put together. And she's been able to experience that, and in that way share it with guests around the world. We try and include culinary influences. So when we're looking at what are we doing in terms of our buffet, in terms of our meal options, we look at how do we incorporate a bit of local flair into it. So what are local dishes that guests might be happy to experience, but still offering it at a very high standard that is in line with that 5-star grading that we need to keep in line with. So we do try and include it. From the work that we do in the community, we share a lot of it through Facebook and through social media. So through our LinkedIn account, through Facebook, we share a lot of it through our global platforms. So, we have an entire communications team who looks at what goes on to Hilton Durban's Facebook page. They look at it and then they communicate it on a global platform as well. So we've been able to share a lot of our great stories through having such a strong global communications platform. In terms of guests coming in when they're on leisure, it's a lot easier to let them experience the local community. In Durban, they know a lot of the key sites, so they know about Ushaka, they know about Moses Mabhida, and those are the key tourist attractions they want to get involved in. What we've tried to include a lot of is how do we expose them to other environments. So going to the Zulu Cultural Village, going on tours to go and see the Big Five at local game farms. So we've tried to incorporate a lot of that into the dialogue that we have with guests as well. But I think that in terms of what is available as a property, we probably only know a very small amount, and that is based on who comes in and tells us what their product is. So we are not in the fortunate position to be able to send people out and go and experience what there is available. But we would certainly never stop somebody coming in and saying, I'm a local tour guide, I've just established a business, these are my tours. Can I share a little bit of information that you could share with your guests? And that is something that we are always open to and we are always encouraging, because we realize that there is so much happening out there and we just can't stay on top of the information that is coming. You know, in preparation for one of my youth groups coming in this week, I went and I had a look at the local KZN tourism webpage. And I am amazed at how it's changed from last year to this year in terms of what there is on offer. So I think it's also about hotels being educated on what is changing on a continuous basis, because that is the only thing that we can guarantee, is that what is available today is going to be very different tomorrow. And we can just see how COVID has an impact on that. Because now, how do we encourage our guests to go and experience the local game reserve, but we're not too sure about what kind of COVID precautions have been taken? But they're looking at us as a hotel and saying, can you tell me what COVID precautions have been taken? And I think we need to open up that dialogue amongst what, you know, the 5-star hotels in the Durban area, the Umhlanga hotels, but also with the rural tour guides and the rural communities, telling us what are they doing as well, and being open to sharing that with us. And I think that there's a lot of people engaging in dialogue around this, but we need to get a platform where everybody is actually engaging in dialogue on the same platform.
Okay. No, thank you so much. Makosi, I'm, you know, in wrapping up, now that Candice is saying that obviously they don't have that capacity to be everywhere in terms of the rural community, how then do you encourage you know, some of these rural folks to be able to also you know, polish whatever craft they have? I mean, not necessarily the craft, but you know, the service that they offer, and you know, reach out to entities like you know, like Hilton and other product that they can be able to be of assistance and offer their service. Because COVID, as we say right now, is going to live with us, and we're expected to adhere to some certain, you know, protocols. And you are a big brand, and sometimes if you don't adhere to those things, you are limited to move out of your space. So how do you educate them for them to understand that, yes, people are going to come here, but for you to be able to get the spend or get these people coming here, you ought to be able to observe these things so that we you know, we try to build back better.
Yeah. For our members, as I previously mentioned, we've got 2 master classes that we do of the personal and product development. And within those master classes, we do intense work on digital literacy as well as information literacy. Now, when I say information literacy, it's finding out, if I'm a tour guide, what are the latest trends that are relevant to me as a tour guide? If I'm an establishment owner, what are the latest trends that are affecting me as establishment owner? If I'm a tour operator in the likes of myself, looking to what are the latest trends that are out there that speak to me. For instance, I, as a tour operator, 2 most things that I do when I wake up in the morning is look at the weather and the rand and exchange rates with the dollar, because it speaks to what I do. So we teach them and we arm them with the digital and information literacy. Now, when it comes back, goes to finding out how they can work with the big hotels. When the KZN Women in Tourism, when we do partnership or target funding, we are strategic. We just don't take any funding that's out there. We don't take any partnership that's out there, because at the end of the day, we have to account for what we did. So I'll make an example with a perfect example with what's happening right now. We did a feasibility study for MTN and Cell C. We highlighted how many business owners are in that region, and we highlighted how many people that they have using their service and the radius there is between from the point where they are to the nearest network pole. So we wanted them, we didn't want fundings, we wanted a partnership where we use their resources in enabling and giving homestays, tour guides, and mobile devices for them to be able to connect their clients, because it's important for the clients to be connected at all times to share their experiences. So in Nongoma, that project has been successful. In Kokstad, that project has been successful. I know it's just speaking of 2 districts, because KZN is made up of 9 districts, but that's progress on its own. So, Kojo, there's a lot of work to be done. It's
Yes.
intense, but we are getting there slowly but surely. And we welcome, when we approached MTN and Cell C, we were hesitant in them saying no, but we welcome them saying yes. There'll be them offering us to go to the 9 districts. Yes, we've ticked off 2, but we still got 7 other districts to go in offering that. I mean, like, for instance, look at Jessica's situation. If she had that mobile device, she would be able to connect easily, without having to climb the mountain, Ross. Yeah, so it's just basically that, Coach.
Okay. Zodwa, what will be your final words, and what are you doing at yourself and your industry colleagues in terms of the new normal and how you can have that interface, in a well-coordinated interface between the PCO, the professional conference organizers, and then the rural community?
Okay, so it's really more collaboration and very, I think, intentional and strategic communication in making sure that we are all on the same wavelength. Like I was saying, make an example of the fact that we are now currently on site at the Durban ICC. So, I mean, we've had to make sure that we are on the same wavelength as a PCO with the venue in terms of what are the things that we need to make sure that they are in place for the safety and the hygiene of the delegates. The whole setup is completely different. Even the serving of meals, everything is different, but I mean, it's doable. Obviously, hybrid, I think, is still going to be with us for a while. And the sooner we get used to it, the better. Candice mentioned Max's lifestyle. So one of the offerings for this particular project, the Durban Business Fair, is it's called the Flavors of Durban, which is a culinary experience. So that was hosted in Umlazi. That now was a different setting altogether, and a different challenge in terms of making sure that we work with the owner of the establishment, but I mean also making sure that the patrons that were not necessarily part of our event understand the importance of making sure that there's social distancing, they do social distance, and they also have their masks all the time, because it's not just our event that was hosted separately, but within the same venue. So it's just also making sure that everybody is on the same wavelength. And so we had to basically have to work extra hard, in making sure that we bring everybody on board and we collaborate and communicate as much as we can, because we all want to get back into the groove. It's been a while.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I think for us, it's been really exciting to actually be one of the people that are already doing something, as we're already in level 1 in South Africa. So it's been good. Collaborate, and obviously innovation is going to be key, and adaptation. There's a lot of adapting that we have to do, both as PCOs and also of venues and our consumers as in delegates that come to the events.
So, thank you so much. Ross, now I'll wrap it up with you with innovation, like she said, adaptation, and again, what will be your recommendation in the new normal? Of course, both in the villages and then in urban, and people who provide some kind of services, because we are moving to contactless. We are having a lot of online stuff like that. As an expert, what would be your recommendations? Practical one as well.
I only work on practical recommendations, Kojo. I don't live in yeah. So for me, I mean, also having worked in hotels and that, I think it's really important to self-develop. So what does self-development mean? So especially if you're running a hotel or any of that, or if you're just a reservation, if you're a reservations manager, if you've got your own homestay, there's things out there that are free. You've got to go and educate, and you've got to go look for it a little bit. You can go onto Google, you can take a course for free. You can go onto Facebook, take a course for free. You can go onto Expedia, you can learn all the things around it. And as you are learning, so you are understanding how those businesses work, whether it's booking.com, whether it's, there's a whole variety of businesses out there that give you that. But the problem is time. That is the problem. Now, you've had 6 months to kind of sit around and learn, and that's what you should have done. That's what you should have done during the last 6 months, is taught yourself at least 3 or 4 new skills. And that's what you should have done. So if you haven't done that, now you've got to go out there and catch up. So it's about doing things a little bit differently now. So it's about making sure that you set goals in your learning process. There's lots of free things out there, and that you can, in terms of service standards. And it's about now implementing that. So I think that's the practical stuff, is you've got to get yourself out of this rut of waiting for things to happen. You've got to go out and give yourself goals, daily goals, monthly goals, a yearly goal around your development. And it's not, it's around skills, but then also the people development around you. If you have your own business, it's your responsibility to check in with those people as well. Because I think we've got another problem that's coming, is where there's a lot of this. I can see it a lot when I'm traveling to the hotels, some of our clients, that people are down. So it's not just from the technical skills, but there's also the people skills. And the faster you get people happy, the faster your business will succeed. So it goes together. So you can develop them on the skill side, but also make them happy. And I think that's maybe a little less practical in terms of making people happy, but people have gone through a lot of tough things in the last few months. And as business leaders, that's our responsibility, to also take those people that are around us and get them out of that. It's been tough. People forget about this, the psychology of their employees. They just kind of expect them to pitch up and deliver and then leave. You need to, that's the one component that I think we're missing. But the practical stuff is, there's free stuff out there. Go and teach yourself on all the major networks, all the major OTAs, all the major tour operators. They give stuff for free. Start there and work on your people, because the people are the ones that are going to be interacting with your future guests. And if they're happy, your guests will be happy. And that's our goal.
Thanks, Ross. Thank you. Candice, I'll give you the final say. The final. Let's say briefly on how you see post pandemic will be for the sector and people like yourself. Yeah.
Wow. I think the expectation coming out of national lockdown, and certainly with all the different levels that we've seen, was that people were going to be scared to travel. And if there's one thing that we've learned since we opened on the 14th of September, is that we needed to expect the unexpected. I think hotels have not been fully prepared for the fact that people want to travel, and there is definitely a big need to travel locally now. People are not able to get on a plane. They are definitely a lot more cautious about traveling overseas for anything other than business, which means that our human nature to get out and experience the world means we're looking for opportunities closer to home. And I think in this, we've identified a huge opportunity for us to show our local tourism, show what we have as a country. Because statistically, people know less about their own country than they do about other countries in the world. So we've got an opportunity now to market our local tourism to locals. I think we need to look at, are we charging local prices or are we still charging international prices? Because, you know, the big market has always been connect with the international tourist, charge international prices, and that's how economy was built. But as Ross was saying, households have been affected and people want to get out. They want to experience what there is in Africa, in South Africa, in Durban, in KZN. But they are looking at their pocket and going, how do I now travel locally when I can barely afford to put food on the table? And we need to create opportunities for people to travel locally that are cost affordable. And I think that once we're able to do that, definitely the need is there, the desire is there, the willingness is there. People are definitely jumping on opportunities. As an environment, we've just seen how Heritage Weekend has picked up. From yesterday morning, what we had booked into the hotel to what we closed with last night was nearly double to what we expected. And people were making last minute bookings because suddenly they were realizing, hang on, we're in level 1. I can travel locally and there are places that I can go to that are affordable. And I've actually received my salary on time. So let me go and do something. Let me get the kids out of the house because they've been stuck at home for 6 months homeschooling. So I think that our expectation needs to be, let's create a market that people can travel locally, can experience local, and we need to create a platform that people can see what is available locally, not just looking at Ushaka or Moses Mabhida or going into the city center. We need to be looking at how can people take day trips to go and experience game reserves? How can they take day trips to a beachfront and there is an activity that is happening there that is maybe talking about marine wildlife? And I think that there is so much happening in the world and there is so much that COVID-19 has had an impact that we can use these opportunities as learning opportunities for people while they are traveling. You know, we can definitely get people to engage in conversation around this, but we need to be finding a platform to advertise this. You know, are we looking at how we're advertising this through social media? Because social media is the cheapest form of advertising. And are we looking at, does everybody know what is going on? If I take East Coast Radio's Jerusalem Challenge, there wasn't a lot of build-up around it in terms of posting to social media, but last night, Facebook was like wildfire. Every second post was showing what was going on with it. So we need to look at how can we build momentum before activities so that you get the buy-in and people are actually traveling to go and experience these things. And I love what Makosi was saying about how they include a masterclass on digital literacy and information literacy. And I think that is one of the key areas that we need to focus on, is helping people spread what their product is and getting local people to buy into it. And once we can do that, we can build our economy up just looking at the local community.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, the World Tourism Day hybrid series is brought to you by Project ENZA and then Durban Tourism, supported by the African Tourism Association. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen and ladies. And tourism and rural development is more relevant than ever as we face, this global pandemic. And as we build back better, let's ensure that Sunday is World Tourism Day and observation to highlight the role of tourism in our lives, and much more importantly, dedicating the day to promote rural tourism and how it can be, beneficial to the community. Africa's tourism offering most of the times is found in the rural communities, and it's a responsibility on us to be able to bring them along and make tourism that's social force for good. Thank you so much for your time, panelists, and all those who join us. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.